Hi everyone, welcome to Live from the Studio. I'm with Chris Meyer today, and he's got an awesome performance. So coming up, let me launch the intro. I see a few people have joined me. I'll launch the intro in a moment. I see David, DB Polon is here, Alphaster, Peronosphora, Colorado Modular Synthesizer, The Surging Mass, Perf, Malarkey, Electric Kitchen. Welcome all. I'm streaming on YouTube. I'm streaming also on LinkedIn. So just say hi on the chat and I will shout out your name and prepare your question for Chris. All right, let me launch the intro. All right, so today I'm with Chris Meyer, also known as Alias Zone, also known as Learning Modular. So first, you know my website, pitchymango.org. Please have a look at it. And I would like to thank all my supporters. This is on Bandcamp. It's like Patreon. You can join for $20 a year. Help me make this music, make these events, etc. And I would like to thank my new supporter, Chris Meyer. All right. What do we have on the calendar? So we've got Resident Electronic Monthly, which is this Tuesday. I'm pasting the link. Here you go, you have it. So it's this Tuesday. At the moment, I've got crazy TDC doors. I need 4 more performance, so please sign up. That will be Tuesday at 8 p.m. So I need 4 more performance, at least 1. So at least we've got a show. So 3 performance, but ideally 6 performance in total. We've got Resonant Frequency Live. That was last Sunday. I'm lost in space and time. So it was last Sunday, August 1st at 6 p.m. And there was a bunch of us, and it was live in person. That was really nice to see back the community. The next one will be in 2 months in October, so please watch out. And I think all the performance will be posted on YouTube in due time. The next show that we have here in the Bay is a pick. Here's our page. This is on the third Wednesday of the month. They are going to go online for the time being. Like Resident, also we are online. I don't know what will be the next lineup, but it's always an awesome. So talking about this three group, Resident Electronic Monthly, Resonant Frequencies, and Peak, we are sometimes part of what we call Left Coast Light, and we are having a show at the Grey Area, which will be on September, it's a Thursday, September 9 at 8 p.m. We'll be at the Grey Area. We hope to see you live. Let me paste the link. Tickets are on sale. Hurry up to get the advanced ticket. They are cheaper than the general ticket. So get it as soon as possible. And I've got a little movie for you. So let me find it. All right. You just after this little movie. So that was a little bit the promo of the Grey Area. It was a little bit hard to select 6 audio artists and 2 visual artists from all the people. Kind of look at who's behind the scene. I've been helping the various open mic and show, and we plan also to bring more artists as a showcase. So please stay tuned for some new announcement. But we hope to see you as a get together of the community here of our 3 event open mic. So hope to see you there in person. I see Jeff Tansura has joined on LinkedIn. Hi, Jeff. I see Navicor. Who else have missed? Teeny Frames. Welcome, everyone. All right. Let's move on the Bandcamp. So on the Bandcamp, we've got Intanfon that has just released a new album. So please check it out. This is a long link. Okay. So Intanfon is part of the Left Coast Light community, so please check his new album. Yesterday was Bandcamp Friday, where Bandcamp waives their fees to give everything to the artist. The credit card fees are not waived. So a lot of albums were released yesterday. Intanfon, Dream Ambulance at Midnight. You've got also Julia Bonar that has released a remix album, so always awesome what she does, especially with oh no, I'm forgetting the name of company in Spain that she's working with. All right.
Endorphins.
Sorry?
Endorphins.
Endorphins. Thank you, Chris. Yes, Endorphin. All right. And also Slope 114. I'm just trying to make sure that I've got the number correctly. So Slope 114 released an album. Slope 114 used to help organize the search of the Super Surge at Robot Speak. So they've been here in the community. They do a little bit of techno industrial music, dance music. So check it out. Also from our friends here from the Colorado Modular Synth Society, Sign Mountain has got a new album, which is I Daydream. Is it this one? All right, so Sign Mountain likes to daydream. I see also El Rochi has joined us, Synth of Music, Ice Locus. Welcome, everybody. So yeah, a few on the news and where to get your music fix. All right, so today I'm with Chris Meyer. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's a nice day here, and it's good to get online and see everyone again.
Yes, indeed. So, we start by the usual question: who are you?
um, I'm a person who always loved music, but was discouraged from pursuing music at an early age. Um, there's a concern about being a starving musician. I wanted to be a sound engineer. They said, "Oh, you just be the boy who makes the tea and coffee and sweep up afterwards." But I always loved music, and I was fortunate. I had a brother 10 years older than me who was also into music and electronics and video, and he had a big influence on me. And when I was about 6 years old or so, our basement flooded, and we had found his stash of popular electronics magazines. And this was the equivalent of like another teenage boy finding their older brother's Playboy collection or something like that. Just looking at electronic circuits was like my pornography. I did not know what they did. I did not know how the parts were supposed to go together, but I was fascinated by it. So I was really interested in electronics from an early age. And then when he went off to college when I was about 9, his first roommate had an uncle in New York who was doing some of the earliest commercials on a Moog modular in New York. So he brought home a reel to reel tape of all these different commercials done on a synthesizer, including this one Levi's ad that was all a primordial drone and processed voices and all this jazz. Let's go back to the age of the caveman. And I was hooked. The idea that I could combine electronics and music just fascinated me. And that was my main focus. But everyone said you don't want to become a musician, you'll starve. So I got an engineering degree, hoping that that would subsidize a hobby in music. And then 1 year out of college, I find myself working at Sequential Circuits, getting a chance to design electronic music instruments. And that was a great opportunity. And I was in the industry in the early 80s, mid 80s through the mid 90s, got kind of burned out on that, went over to the video and film world for a while, doing graphics for television and film. And when I burned out on Hollywood, I said, what made me happy in life? And it was mucking with sound, just playing around with sound, creating brand new sounds. And I noticed, this is about 2015, that modular synthesizers were becoming popular again. And that's what I learned on as a teenager. I took lessons on a modular synth. So I said, oh, great, I'll get back into modular synths. And I intended just to go into my cave, have fun, make sounds on my own. That'll be it. But my wife in particular encouraged me, said, you used to know this stuff, you used to design this stuff, you should share what you know about this with other people. So I launched around 2015 Learning Modular, a company where I shared my understanding and my education and learning of how to use synthesizers with other people, blog posts, glossary, online training courses, and things like that. And that eventually led to Kim Bjorn of Books seeing some of my earlier videos and saying he liked the way I explained the modular synthesizers. So he asked me to co-author the book Patch and Tweak with him. And I'm really, really happy with how many people have adopted the Learning Modular courses or Patch and Tweak as a book. It's great to be able to share and help other people on this journey, because we all just love sound and we all love electronic music. And most recently, I've had a chance to tweak my focus a bit from teaching synthesizers to getting more of a chance to use them myself, to start composing and performing more on my own. I've been doing that underneath the Alias Zone name, a name I used to play with back in the late 90s, around 2000 or so. So that's the capsule of my journey into electronic music. And it's really fun so many years later, after being in love with electronic music as a kid, to come back now and finally at this point in my life, make it my career.
That's cool. I went to look for Patch and Tweak site, so I've got it on the show. I've got a first question from Peronosphora. So everyone, if you have questions for Chris Meyer, just put them in the chat, and I will relay them. So she's asking, would you change your musical path if you could, or you're happy how everything turned out?
Yeah, you always wonder at those points if you had made a different decision. And I had made decisions in the past that I probably regret. I did perform around LA with Richard Bugg's group, The Cosmic Debris, and that led to me releasing an album underneath the name Alias Zone back in 2000. And as a follow-up to that, a great jazz electronic trumpeter by the name of John Hassel made some constructive criticism about the album, we'll say, but then asked me to go do a one-off gig with him in Italy. And at that point, I was thoroughly immersed in the video and film world, and I turned it down. And I kind of thought, I've made a decision. I'm doing video and film. I've given up on music. And I wonder what would happen if I had taken that fork instead back then, pursued music, a couple of decades ago, as opposed to doing it now. On the other hand, I certainly can't complain about where I am now. I'm just really, really happy with the space I'm in, with the community that's out there today. The modular community is just amazingly warm and welcoming and cooperative rather than competitive. So I certainly have no regrets about where I've ended up now.
Yes, and I say I was surprised to see a modular course on LinkedIn Learning, so I follow your course. So that was cool, and that was I don't know, that was really nice to the basics. Or I'm turning some knobs. I'm not sure what they do. I just hear the result, and so that was interesting to figure it out a little bit what's behind the scene and try to put more intent into what I was doing.
Yeah, I am trained as an engineer, so I know how these things work on the inside, and it's always been a focus of mine to try to translate what's the musical idea in your head to what you need to do with the machine. And I think once you get over that hurdle of knowing that connection, the machine gets out of your way and becomes a partner in composition rather than sometimes an adversary where you try to say, like, why aren't you doing what I want you to do? Or how do I get back to that sound that I liked that I had 1 week ago? I feel that if you've got this foundation of how sound works and how electronics works, you don't need to be an engineer or anything like that. If you have an understanding what's happening on the other side of the panel, then it makes it much easier to make the machine do what you want it to do, and it becomes like a great partner to work with.
Yes, indeed. Tajima said that he used a patch and tweak as reference last night to do a patch. I've got a few questions. Yes. I don't know. First one from Mike Sykes. Any learning modular branded module in the works?
I had the great privilege of working in companies like Sequential and things like that, but I was also at Sequential Circuits while they were in the process of going bankrupt. So I have quite a traumatic experience of what it's like to work in the music industry and try to make a living at it. So I'm at a point in my life now where I'm done with the manufacturing side. I'm happy to be on the user side and to share from that. So I have no interest in making my own modules, but I regularly consult with other companies on modules that they're working with. I love getting into the modular development process when you can still mold what a module can be and add some ideas. And I've had a particularly good relationship with Rossum Electromusic that had an influence on a few of their modules in particular, and great relationships with people like 512 and the Vector Sequencer. So I'm happy to just take the knowledge I have and share it with people rather than taking on the burden of running a company making modules these days, because it's a struggle. It's a struggle, particularly today with the parts shortages, et cetera.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and I see we've got a friend also started a new system instrument and released a few modules, and he's getting there. And yeah, the world of modules seems you need to move some volumes to start to be mainly successful. But that's interesting. Okay. So David is asking. What's the latest? What do you think about the latest synthesizer being released, especially once we are revisiting vector synthesizers, reinventing all ideas, or you find new sounds through the revolutionary or unique? So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because there's particularly a love to revisit old instruments or to do analog emulations and things like that. And for people who are getting their first exposure to those instruments, it's fantastic. And I'm happy that they're getting the opportunity through software emulations, et cetera, to play with these instruments from 40, 50 years ago in a new form. From a very personal level, I played with these instruments back in the late 70s, and I already have a long history using analog synthesizers. And my personal approach is, I've done that, I know those sounds, I want to go discover new sounds. So I'm much more interested personally in modules and in synthesizers that open up brand new soundscapes rather than emulating old soundscapes. Not saying they shouldn't exist, they're a lot of fun, there's some classic sounds out there. But for me, it's all about what's the new sound, what's a new expression, what's a new way to try to get emotion into music using some new machinery. So my interest is much more into what are the newer technologies and what are the newer instruments and approaches.
Yes, indeed. I see some more question, but before that, you were talking about the community, and I think it's right time also to plug your Patreon.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a Patreon channel, patreon.com/learningmodular, where I get to share in a long form basis all of my experiences from the past and also the present of using these modular synths. I had, the good fortune to be involved in the design of synths back in the 80s and 90s. So we share some historical stuff, but also everything that I've learned or I'm learning along the way, new patch ideas. Whenever I have a new composition, I break it down in great detail for my patrons. And as opposed to like the soundbite oriented world of Twitter and Instagram these days, it gives me a chance to write long articles, record in-depth videos, and share with a few hundred people really in-depth knowledge of how to use these instruments. And Patreon has in general been a great community. Another community I'm a member of on Patreon is Modulation Sound Lab, which I've joined because I know modulars very well, but I'm finally getting back into hybrid recording, melding the computer with the modular. And groups like Modulation Sound Lab up on Patreon has been helping me in that journey because, no one was born knowing this stuff. No one knows everything. And I enjoy learning something and expanding what I can do. So it's been fun to share what I know and also to learn from others.
Yes, indeed. And the performance that we are going to play in a few minutes, you shared with me the production notes, and they were really awesome and extensive. So I really encourage people sign up on the Patreon so you can read. We'll talk about the performance, but the production note, we won't be able to go through everything in the production notes. So. Please have a check with it. Yeah, no, I've been also joining the, I'm trying to remember this, Modular Lab.
The Modulation Sound Lab, yeah.
Modular Sound Lab, yeah, which is a little bit different from folks at the SoCal in society. It's quite good. I see Sheila Friday Patterson is on LinkedIn, and Bruno Mondo 12 also is on Twitch. I stream on all these platforms and Facebook too. Though people tend to go on YouTube. All right. And I think I've had a question also from, I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, all that gone. What do you think about the motion of modular music as a genre?
I think it's great because it's so wide. I really think we're in the really early days of a renaissance of electronic music, and people not only replicating forms that they know, like techno, Berlin school, things like that, but I see a lot of people just making up their own styles and finding their own way and creating brand new music. And I find that really exciting as well. And what's particularly exciting is like we're only a few years into this. Where are we going to be 10 years from now when people have been using modulars for 10, 15, 20 years in this new generation? And what all new musical forms are they going to come up with? That fascinates me. Now, myself, I'm in a couple particular niches of what I like to play. I like old school, Berlin movement, like Michael Honig, Tangerine Dream, Klaus Schulze, things like that. I do a lot of ethno-ambient or tribal ambient, like Robert Rich and Steve Roach. I've been playing around with more floating type ambient things. Some of those influences are in the piece we're going to play a little bit later on. But it's amazing to listen to the breadth of things from techno and dance music to very noise oriented to very drone or ambient oriented to what I call modular bebop, where people are just throwing everything at you sonically as fast as you can take it. I think it's modular has really opened up musical language, and I've just been really enjoying that.
Yeah, that's cool, and yeah, it's interesting because it's a little bit like I don't know, a cello as a genre, a specific instrument, but it's more the creation process, and sometimes I feel it, it's a little bit like jazz on the improvisation part. I see, Rochi, Electric Kitchen, Chantal DeFelice says, thanks for the shout out for Modulation Sound Lab. I did one, and she was doing an awesome drawing while I was talking. Tiny Frames is here. Reynald de Souza also. Wojo Mike. So Electric Kitchen was asking, you say that I guess in the 70s, 80s, you had access to modular synth. So where was that? How did you get access to modular
Yeah,
synth
when I
back
was a
then?
teenager, there was I lived in a little town called Hamilton, Ohio, and in nearby Cincinnati, about an hour away, there was actually a place called the Cincinnati Electronic Music Center. It was opened up by David McClanahan, a Buchla user back then. And it was kind of partly his own thing, so he could continue composing, and partly a music store. So we had Buchla, we had EML, we had Polyfusion, we had Moog, we had Korg, we had Sequential, all these amazing synths in this store down there. And as part of it, there's a guy by the name of Pat Gallagher, who was the area rep for Steiner Parker synthesizers. And he happened to live in another small town called Fairfield, not that far from me. So as a teenager, I started taking modular synthesis lessons from Pat Gallagher, primarily on a Steiner Parker synthesis system. So my introduction to how to learn how to use a synthesizer was using a modular and breaking everything down to the components, each part of the signal path. So that's why I have that sort of rigor to my approach to modular, because that's how I learned as a teenager.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see, where people got their synthesizer fix. I think, yeah, Electric Kitchen has been on the surge, and I was also talking with a dog liner that was, an early surge adopter. So it's interesting to see the history of electronic music by people that lived it. And
I think El Rochi had a question about combining modulars with some modern synths. Maybe we should approach as well.
yes. So yeah, have you been using the Waldorf Iridium, and do you patch it to your modular?
Not yet, but that's coming. A couple of the polysynths I've chosen, the SM Hydrasynth and the Waldorf Iridium, part of the reason I chose them is because they had CV gates and control voltages in and out. And in the part of my studio that I call Polysynth Island, I have above them a small modular system that's meant strictly for interfacing with the polysynths and to add to their capabilities. For example, I'm a real fan of chaotic modulation sources. And it's hard to find a good chaotic modulation source built into many synthesizers these days. So one of the things I have in the little module rack above the Hydrasynth and the Iridium are things like an LB Ian Fritz Chaotica and other modules similar to that. A Chaos Devices Zadar, which has very complex envelopes. Those are some of the modules that I have above those polyphonic synths, planning to get down the road where I'm interfacing and using things like a planar from IntelliGel to control some of the aspects of those voices from a small modular system.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've got a question for peronosphora, but I think that will be the good intro. Which was, do you prefer virtual event or live situation? And I think you were telling me that, before the pandemic started, you were more playing with everybody and specializing, and then, so I don't know, tell us more.
Yeah, before the pandemic, and even going back to the late 90s, 2000, I was used to playing in improvised ensembles where I would take on the role of the drummer. And back in the 90s and 2000, I used first a Studio 440 sampling drum machine, which is actually was my instrument that I created at Sequential Circuits. And then later on, early versions of Ableton Live to improvise playing loops from many different textures and influences underneath the band, so I could lay down a groove, set up an ambience, and have them improvise on top of it. And when I got back into modulars, I built a portable case that could fit into the overhead compartment of an airplane that replicated me being the drummer again. Many different trigger pattern generators and logic devices, many different sound modules which created different types of percussive sounds. And I would regularly go and jam with other people saying, I'll be your drummer, or I'll fill in an additional layer of texture and rhythm over what you're doing. Let's improvise. And for a lot of electronic musicians, that's kind of an unusual idea. So many people are used to playing solo as opposed to interacting with other musicians and going back and forth. But that was my foundation back in the 90s and 2000 when Richard Bugg of Cosmic Debris asked me to join his ensemble. So I had a big plan of all these people I was going to visit and improvise with and record in the studio and talk to, and then the pandemic hit. And suddenly I'm at home. And meanwhile, I had this really large studio synthesizer, which we call the Monster. And it previously had been just a playground. Let's go experiment with different patch ideas and things like that. But I just had to turn to it and say, well, let's see if I can compose long form solo music on my own. I'd done a few tone poems and different ideas that I wasn't entirely happy with. But particularly when David Soto of the Colorado Modular Synth Society said, hey, we're going to do this space music concert series. The first one's October Skies. I want you to be part of it. That put the pressure on me, like, okay, I have an opportunity. Let's use this to go see if I can compose long form solo material. And in that case, the modular became my ensemble, where I just divided up. You're the bass player, you're going to play this melodic line, you're going to play this melodic line, etc. And I was very pleased with how it turned out. So since then, during the pandemic, I've been focusing primarily on creating longer form solo material, combining my big modular with the computer and with other polysynths like the Iridium, the Vector Synth out of the Czech Republic, things like that. And now learning to basically improvise with myself, to react to what I'm doing and add another layer on top of it, rather than reacting to what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's interesting, especially I guess you've got the monster, so you've got everything to make a full piece, and then a couple of extra synthesizer. So we are reaching, half past, which is the time where we'll listen to the performance and see it. So do you want to talk about it a little bit beforehand?
Yeah, I'll set up this particular piece because it's a little bit of a departure from pieces I've been doing recently. Like I said, I've been using the modular mainly to do sequence heavy music and then combining it with various ethnic samples, voices of Buddhist monks, Aztecs, Native Americans, etc., to create either Berlin School type sequence music or what's called ethno-ambient or tribal ambient music, where you put more strong like Aboriginal, etc. influences mixed in with electronic music. But recently, my wife and I took a trip up to Breckenridge, Colorado to just hike and enjoy the outdoors. And the only things I brought with me was this little Vector synth out of the Czech Republic and a field recorder. And as we hiked around, there's lots of running water from all the snow melting, creeks, rivers, all this jazz. And in the meantime, I was experimenting with creating slowly evolving harmonic environments on the Vector that just, I could load notes into it, and then it would automatically shift octaves and keep morphing the tonality and going on its own. But this points to a new direction for me, maybe doing some more, floating music or more ambient music that was very suspended harmonically with mainly ambiances as opposed to be more rhythmically oriented. So this piece we're about to play called Shipwrecked is a halfway house between those, where I'm using those ideas combined with my approach to using sequenced stuff. And it started off with using the Vector to do these very floating harmonic melodies. I searched around for different water ambiances to go with it. I eventually found a water ambience recorded by Free to Use Sounds near a shipwreck in Cyprus. And suddenly the idea of, let's make this piece a portrait of a shipwreck and people who are perhaps died there and stirring those souls. And every piece that I create, there's a storyline to it. I always have to have some inspiration, a story, an idea, so I can say every sound, every part I add has to serve this story now. So this piece became about visiting a shipwreck long after the incident and creating that sonic environment around that visitation.
On the Awesome Journey, so I guess we'll get started on this journey. Everyone will see you just after the piece. If you've got any questions, just ask them on the YouTube, and I'll pick up some of them and then relay to Chris. Let's see this performance. Oh, that was really awesome. Thanks, Chris. With Chris Meyer, learning modular, Alias Zone. Very awesome performance. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Someone made the comment or question earlier about what I thought about modular music. And the funny thing is that a lot of modular music today is so much more edgy or experimental, where I find I'm, very almost romantic in what I'm doing. And for a while, I doubted myself, like I'm not edgy enough. I'm not, pushing myself like other people are pushing. But I found I just had to be true to the muses in my own head, because that's what takes over when I'm playing. I can start with an idea, but when I then am composing a piece, a different part of my brain takes over and says, and now we need to do this. And now we should add this. And the end result is usually different than what I thought it was going to be when I started. But I'm learning to trust that part of my brain now.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. Take the music where take yourself where you and guide the music. But yeah, it's a really nice ambient piece, and well posed, and having the drone and the bass line together, and then bring some physical instrument, especially I guess I don't know the rain god.
Yeah, yeah. I've had
Is the light. I see everybody is clapping and thanking you for this awesome.
Oh, that's
piece.
nice. Thank you. Yeah, I had a collection of hand percussion instruments going back to when I played with Richard Bugg's Cosmic Debris, because in addition to doing loops of different percussion, I would then bring in accents on different hand percussion. So some of these things I have are like 20, 30 years old, and I'm finally getting to use them in music again. So it's a lot of fun. Particularly, I love mixing the harder edged, less polished tones of primitive hand percussion with electronic tones. I think it's a lovely combination.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I see a few people, I don't know, show up or clap, like Alex Barnett, Carlin Alès, Ian Sia, Anne Graham, Jeff Kellan, Puff, Malaki also, I didn't say him. Arduk also is a join. Really, really awesome. And some people are, yes, use the iPhone or their big speaker, so that's to get the full performance. And you will be able to rewind and listen to it again, and I'm sure you will post it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it'll go live on the Alias Zone YouTube channel after this is done.
So we spoke a little bit, that your composition, you try to tell a story and get a journey, and that's what inspire you to put all the pieces together. What about on the technical side? Can you tell us, one or two tips to do for modular synth?
Yeah, I'm always trying to make each sound more complex and to have more interest in the individual sounds. It's really easy to patch up a standard like SH-101 monosynth voice for everything, but instead I'm trying to get more textures into my sounds, and I push myself on those. For example, a couple people commented on the bass tone. For my bass tones, I'm almost always mixing an analog oscillator and a digital oscillator, just to have the warmth of an analog, but then some additional harmonics from the digital on top of it. In this particular piece, there's an AFG live wire with its animated pulses, but then a Dove wave plane, which is a very vector-like digital oscillator, where I could envelope it and modulate its mixture of 4 different waveforms on top. For envelopes, I'm trying to actually get away from just a standard attack decay envelope and create something that has more bounce and more life during the course of a note. So I was using a Chaos Devices Zadar for the longest while, and I've come up with my own patch where I'm using a slow random source that's doing its own fluctuating voltages, enveloping that. So I get a burst of random fluctuations that then die out, and combining that with a normal envelope. So like the bass tone, instead of just going dow, dow, it's like dow, as it dies away. I'm trying to bring that attention to every bits of the patch. Whenever possible, I'm patching slow random modulations to different parameters, so sounds will keep evolving over the course of a piece. I have a lot of things like the hipster, the triple sloth, the Felistre modules like that, just to give me all these random voltages, sample and holds like the DivKit SSF random step, so that every note is articulated differently. I guess part of it is back in the 90s and 2000, I was playing with, quote unquote, real musicians as opposed to people who conjured everything on a synthesizer. And I kept watching how they were playing their instruments and how they were articulating every note to sound differently. I'm trying to bring some of those ideas of articulation into the modular so that every note is slightly different, either through a little bit of a randomized voltage or a little sample and hold to a parameter like filter cutoff or resonance, just to try to humanize or to make the synthesizer more interesting to listen to.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, I've been watching some I don't know, YouTube video on the sound design and stuff like that, and it's interesting to bring a little bit of chaos or randomization, and even in the sound design, just don't make it perfect and neat all the time. Like recently, I learned about polyrhythm, where you've got two patterns that are kind of fighting each other.
Yeah.
You got main line and you recognize, but there's something in the background that is not fully following it, and avoid the repetition.
Yeah.
So you do that in sound design?
I work a lot with my sequencing.
Yeah, in your sequencing, do you do that also?
Yeah. Yes, I do a lot with my sequencing to try to separate the note selection from the timing of when the notes are played. So even though I'll set up like a 4 or 8 note pattern in the sequencer, I'll use a rhythmic generator such as the Mutable Instruments grids to actually step through those notes. So it might be a 3 note or a 5 note and rest pattern going through, say, a 4 or 8 note sequence. So the notes are always traveling rather than just steady boom, boom, boom. And then this particular piece, I started with the bass just being very clocked very steadily, and then change it where it's doom, 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 and then bring in more and more complexity as the piece goes on in the way that is clocked. So I do try to really create a lot more rhythmic interest in my sequences rather than having everything banging out 8th notes or 16th notes or whatever.
But you change your sequence, or you use some swing, or you've got a kind of random generator that moves the notes a little bit around?
Yeah, I don't actually program swing into it, but I do try to use real rhythm patterns as the trigger clock source to go through the steps of the sequence. So the Mutable Instruments grids is actually based on 25 underlying real drum patterns, percussion patterns that Emily had determined as part of a study she'd done years ago. Or I'll even take drum loops of live players, put them through an envelope follower, and then use the peaks of a live player to step the sequences. So I'll take like the natural swing of a human performer on a particular percussion instrument to step the sequences along.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, recently I bought a quad envelope that has got, a pre-delay, which is, I was looking for it. I said, well, do I do it in the clock? And I said, oh, no, I do it in the envelope. I put the pre-delay in the envelope. So like this, not everything is hitting at the same time. So
yeah,
I think that was my discovery moment.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously I love delays too. Some of the delays were done inside live, but the very long delays, particularly the hand percussion, the bell sounds early on, are actually a modular patch where I have a 4MS DLD with a 12-beat delay and a 16-beat delay or an 8-beat delay feeding back on each other and ping-ponging through a filter. Then I have another module just randomly reversing them. So a sound will go, then suddenly start playing backwards. So there's a rhythmic underpinning, but then a bit of chaos as to when details are thrown into the pattern.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Navi Corset, yeah. I've taken Chris' helpful comment about designing univox in previous interviews to hurt. Been scanning multiple outputs for single notes lately. That's cool.
Yeah.
Idea of love follower from Ice Locus. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to find the rhythm, and I do quadraphonics, so you can move your sound in the space so it doesn't collide. And then the other one is time, so you can, you've got the frequencies, so they're in different frequency range, but also playing with the time so they don't overlap each other. So I'm trying to find all the techniques.
We were just talking about this actually in the Modulation Sound Lab session this morning about how Bernie Krause, who was one of the pioneers on the Moog synthesizer, et cetera, has gotten really into natural soundscapes. And he's found that there's a pattern when different insects and animals coexist in the same environment. How do they talk to each other with all this noise going on? And he found through careful study that they separate themselves out into what pitches their songs are at, and the timing of their songs to interweave with all the other animals in their environment, so they can still communicate even though this whole din is going on. And I thought that was an interesting concept to carry over to music, is rather than having everything hitting on the beat, How do you separate things out timing wise? How do you separate things out frequency wise? So you can have several parts going and hear each of them. And that's a fun challenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. So a little bit back on, I don't know, projects. What's your upcoming projects? What's happening for
you? I had a bit of a curveball thrown into my plans for projects for the rest of this year. When it looked like the pandemic was lifting, I was planning all sorts of trips to different places to go jam with different people, do recording sessions with people, things like that. And then I had an unfortunate accident last month where I took a fall and broke a leg. And I'm not going to be able to walk for several months now. So no longer am I going out and playing with other people, but instead I'm going to go down into the studio as soon as I can figure out how to get down the stairs here and really focus on creating some album material. So far for me, albums have been kind of like a byproduct of composing for various live performance opportunities. Oh, look, I have a collection of performances I'm happy with. Let's turn it into an album. Now I'm going to go with an approach of thoughtfully trying to create 1, 2, or 3 albums in genres and making them suites of music as opposed to byproducts of performances. And that's where my focus is really going to be for the remainder of this year.
Yes. So have you recorded something yet, or it's
No, I'm still unable to get downstairs where my studio is. I live upstairs, Sue's downstairs. I do have a couple instruments up on this table next to me. Like I have the Vector synth I brought upstairs to play with and things like that. So I've been mainly working on ideas and gathering ideas. And when I do music, I do kind of split my time into what I call R&D, research and development, versus the actual performance or composition. I'll spend a lot of time researching. This is an interesting sound. This is an interesting loop. This is an interesting vocal segment that might be a storyline. This is a new instrument I need to learn. Here's a rhythm pattern I want to learn. I'll spend time working on those separately. And if good ideas come out, I'll just jot them down. But then I'll go into a separate mode where I decide to actually compose music. And that's where I start drawing upon the things that fell out of the R&D session. Oh, I'll use that idea for the rhythm for bells. Oh, I'll use that idea for the voice to give us a storyline. And that way I'm not stuck while composing going, well, what do I do next? It's more like I have a whole jar full of ideas I can pull from the R&D sessions. And I find then composition goes much faster.
Yeah, that's interesting. I tend sometimes also to procrastinate, so think about it in my head, and before even touching the modular synth, like, oh, that's an interesting technique, and that could produce a cool sound.
Yeah.
Or I would do it, etc.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time gathering ideas, and then suddenly, whoosh, a piece will come out.
Yeah. Although sometimes it's, like yesterday I posted a picture on Instagram that my wife took, and then somebody said, "Oh, that's a cover album." So now I've got the idea. I have to make the music.
Yeah, Walking in the Clouds.
Yes.
Photo that was up recently.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm making a patch also to prepare for the gray area, so I guess that will be the I don't know. It kind of fitted what I'm trying to do and the image, so I think I've got everything together now.
That's great. I'm a very visual person as well, and actually I'd spent several years pursuing fine art, where I was doing mixed media collages. But in those pieces, each one of them was the idea of here's an artifact that has been unearthed that's telling a story about a civilization or a place with different texts and images and textures. And I kind of carry that same idea now over to music of like each piece. I've had a lot of people comment that they thought my music was rather cinematic, and that's probably because I'm thinking of a storyline that's unfolding during each piece.
Yes. So beside the composition, how is your modular synth community around you?
Well, I live in New Mexico, and we do have a nice little community, particularly around the largest city, Albuquerque. I live between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, the capital. And so we do have a good group that's getting together physically once a month, as well as virtually once a month as well. And the virtual community reaches out online. We've got people coming in from Australia and different states and things like that into our virtual community for the New Mexico Modular Society. But it's also been fun to, I think during the pandemic, a lot of us learned how to reach out to each other's communities. So I'm a regular in the SoCal Society. I'm a regular in Colorado Society. I attend your events out of the Bay Area. and I enjoy immersing myself in these different communities and these different influences, and getting a chance to meet and talk to different people that way. It's been, one of the lemonades that's come out of the lemons of the pandemic is learning how to reach out and blend communities together and expand the circle of friends and people that you're influenced by.
Yeah, I found it, I don't know, kind of the silver lining, if you can say, is that I don't have a monster case, but I've got a heavy case still. It's 14U. It's quite heavy, so I don't have to take that on the road and go and perform in New York. I can just stream it online. So that has been very useful to to reach to people and then mingle with all this community around the US.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have been trying to plan how do we transition into being live again in a post-pandemic phase. And one of the things I've even done is in my monster modular behind me is take the power supplies, which weigh about 30, 40 pounds, out of it and put them into an external case, just with the idea of if I wanted to move it to go play live somewhere, it's more possible now.
Oh yes, I remember I saw the monster case with no modules. You were telling me I'm redoing it, everything. All right. I'm just checking a little bit on the chat if we have got any more questions. I think some people are asking, how are you doing since your fall?
I'm doing very well. Frankly, I'm very fortunate. Yeah, I had a fall, from about a 10, 12 foot height and broke a leg as a process. But I didn't hit my head, so I don't have any brain damage. And I was really sensitive to that because part of my hospital stay, I was actually in a brain trauma ward and got to see the struggle a lot of people are going through. The leg, although it was broken, it broke in a very clean way that I'm trying to recover full functionality of it in several months. So I'm actually, really fortunate. Yes, I've had the setback, but rather than letting it stop me or push me backwards, I'm just going off in a different direction now. Okay, I can't go out. I will work in my studio. I will work on the computer, putting together sounds and samples for the next pieces I'm going to work on. And I'm fortunate that several months from now, probably, hopefully around January, I'll be able to get back out into the world again.
Peronosphora is asking, if you have any additional opportunity to do more educational podcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I keep thinking about doing another course and what that might mean. I mean, my Patreon channel is my main focus right now. Patreon.com/learningmodular. That's where I'm sharing, new ideas I come up with, old ideas that I've uncovered, and that's where a lot of my efforts for videos and writing are going right now. I still owe them a couple of videos on like a Kako patch that developed recently and things like that. I'm thinking about what another course might be, and I might do something on advanced patching ideas, because something I've been working on the past year or two is how do you take the standard modules most of us have and recombine them in ways to extend the normal patch we do on synth, like patching a tracking filter after an oscillator to purposely alter the harmonic content coming out of that oscillator to get new sounds rather than like just a sawtooth or a square or a triangle wave. What are ways to make envelopes more interesting than just a standard straight decay sound, things like that. And maybe all sorts of different clocking tricks to create more interesting rhythms. That might get consolidated down into a course down the road. The original thought was I was going to do that this winter, but life throws these changes at us and we just learn to adapt.
Yes, and also you spoke about the composition, so that that could be also interesting. How do you put all that together and and get a cohesive piece?
Yeah, my personal focus right now is on composing music, but that doesn't mean I've stopped talking about synthesizers. Now it's just changed from what does this one module do to how to use this module to realize a musical idea. So that's been my main focus, is doing the work myself and then sharing everything I've learned along the way of like, here's how I'm doing this, here's how I accomplish this, here's how I solve this musical problem, here's how I try to make this more interesting. And just hoping that other people who are still on that different part of the journey that I'm on right now get something out of it and it helps push them along as well.
Yeah, No, and this chat was really interesting, sharing some ideas and tips and getting some new ideas of did you approach some of the composition and yes, modulating stuff for sound design. Yeah, I think David Poland is saying, also about interfacing a modular and polysynths. Get into the hybrid world between modular and having a fully featured synths and get them to work together. I think you demonstrated some of it in this performance.
Yeah, I'm really trying to hybridize the system. Like even in that piece just played, like a lot of the stuff from the computer or the microphone went back through the modular, for example. And I do have a small rack I mentioned earlier in the show over a couple of my polysynths, the Hydrosynth and the Iridium, with the idea that I'm going to eventually start getting more interesting envelopes, et cetera, into those polysynths from my modular system.
That's good. So we passed the top of the hours. I didn't want to stop the conversation. Just want to make sure, I think we talk about your future project and, we mentioned all the area you wanted to mention. Did we forget anything?
I saw a couple people, particularly Chantel, asked on the chat, where do you see my visual art? There's actually a site called chrismeyerart.com that shows some examples of the mixed media collages that I do.
chrismeyerart.com. Please check the visual side of Chris.
Other than that, thank everyone for showing up today. I always enjoyed talking about music. None of us were born knowing any of this stuff. The way we all learned, is either alone in the studio or by sharing with each other. And I just really, really enjoy sharing my discoveries and learning from other people as well.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to share your personal experience and emotion, your music to other people, create some experience. So I'm going to go over the news and then I'll come back to you for the word of the end. I don't have planned the next show, so I don't know when the next show will be and who it will be. I'll try to figure that one out. But that's awesome to all of you. Going to change a little bit things so we can hear you. So if you want to participate in the news, and I'll come back to you in a minute. All right. The news. So pitchymango.org. Please check my site where you can find music and links to everything. Instagram link and etc. I want to thank all my supporters on Bandcamp. If you want to become a supporter, that's awesome. I don't have a Patreon. I do a Bandcamp supporter. You have access to unreleased music. I've got a new album in the making. I've uploaded the second version of it, and I did more track. I've got 2 more tracks also to upload. So you can participate in my process by becoming a supporter. And I thank my New Year's supporter, Chris Meyer. Resident Electronic Monthly is this Tuesday at 8 p.m. There's still some slot open for signing up, so please sign up. We'll see you at 8 p.m. on YouTube. You can find the link here on beimproviser.com. It's on YouTube under Coyote Hearing Studio. Resonant Frequencies was last Sunday, and it was a physical show. We were all together. That was really awesome. The next one will be, so they skip September, it will be on October 1st. You've got a Peak also that does a show on the 3rd Wednesday of the month, so should be next Wednesday, not this Wednesday coming, but the one after. And it's always a awesome lineup, and it will be online. And 3 shows together as part of Left Coast Light are doing an event at the Grey RS Theatre. It's a space where they have got experimental music and visual artists and etc. So we are bringing our 3 shows together to a little bit showcase all the open mic that we are doing and the events that we are doing and bring the community together. So I will play you a little bit the teaser movies that we did. So I'll see you just after. right, that was it. And if you want to join Left Coast Light, give me a second. I've got the link to join the Discord. It's in my note. Found it. All right, if you want to join Left Coast Light, is a link to join the Discord server of Left Coast Light, LCL. So that's a gray area. It's on Thursday, 9 September. It's an in-person show. Please get your tickets early. I know there's a COVID and Delta variant and everything, but these events are open. All right. And we'll be all careful. Okay, next one. On the Bandcamp site, so Intanfon has released a new album. He's a Left Coast Light member. That was yesterday. I've got the link correct? Yes, I've got the link correct. Yesterday was a Bandcamp Friday. I saw also Julia Bander has got a remix of a previous album. It's on Bandcamp. Please check it up. What else? I've got Slope 114, which is a local, I guess, band. There's two of them, or duo. They used to help run the Church of the Super Surge at RoboSpeak, and a lot of homemade surge, and they are quite cool. So please check Slope 114. And in the France section, we've got Sign Mountain from the Colorado Modular Synth Society also that have released I Daydream. So if you want to dream with Sign Mountain. I'm with Chris Meyer from Learning Modular, Alias Zone, and the Patreon site. So please also become a Patreon member. And if you haven't subscribed, like this channel, Chris YouTube channel, everywhere, just do the needful everywhere on all the social media and social networks. So Chris, that was really nice to have you. I'll let you the word for the end, and I'll launch the outro.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. And I just want to encourage everyone, don't get down on yourself. None of us was born knowing this stuff. None of us has it all mastered and knows everything yet. Instead, turn everything into learning opportunities. I mean, even during the pandemic, I was pushing myself to get better composition by just volunteering. I'm going to go do this performance. I'm going to go do this performance. I'm on the hook now. I have to create. I can't just procrastinate. So rather than being shy about what you don't know, why don't you polish what you do know and make a date with yourself to make a new piece of music every month or something like that? And that's how you truly increase your skills and you get even more out of these instruments. So just keep learning, everyone. Let's just keep sharing.
That's awesome advice. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for joining the show today on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Keep checking, and I'll post the new show as soon as I've got it together. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.